So there's a few reasons why I want to do emotional work. One of those is that there's been things that have happened in my life that I think have both affected me and also affect other people as well. And there's been three main things. One of those things happened to me at school. Another one happened to me when I was working in an organisation, and the third one happened when I got a new job. I got promoted, and all three of those things have shaped my view on emotion in different ways. So when I was younger, I was asked, how is it I can just mix with lots and lots of different groups of people? And I said, well, can't everybody do that? And they said, no, that's just a really rare thing. So that got me really interested in, well, how is it that individuals can just kind of fit in and mix and mingle with each other and be comfortable with that? Secondly, I should have been sacked, really, from a job that I had when emotion got the better of me, anger in particular got the better of me that day, and I really should have been fired for what I said to a customer. And then thirdly is when I got my first ever managerial job. So when I got my first job, I was told, right, you've got to be different now, you're the boss, you're the leader, you've got to be, you can't be who you were before. And I went through this, through a long period of time where I was pretending to be somebody that I really wasn't. And when I think back on all of those things in my life, and then I think about the world of work that is there at the moment, I think those three issues are still kind of commonplace in the world. So how do we interact and how do we fit in with groups that we work in? That's what work is. Work is about a load of people coming together in a group. Secondly, how do individuals manage their emotions so they don't get them in trouble? Or how do they manage their emotions so they can make the most of them? And then thirdly, how can we help people be as true to themselves as they can possibly be in work? Because I think those three things are really important. So there's a few things that are really important to me. One of my kind of deeply held values is that I like to help people, and I want to help people understand more about themselves and others and how those two things interact and interrelate. Because if you can understand and you can unpick some of that stuff, if you can work out what's happening either within you or between people, then I think that can really help you. And emotional work then is really important because emotions are they're present and prevalent in the workplace. And the trouble is that a lot of time at work especially, we get told push those emotions down, you can't show them, you can't display them. And actually I think emotions can really be harnessed for good, and they can be pulled on in such a way that they can be really constructive. And what I mean by that is they can build relationships, they can build collaboration, they can build trust between people. And what we do at the moment is, instead of harnessing them in that way, we limit their ability by just squishing them and pushing them down. Different emotions have different purposes, they have different functions in what we do. And often, especially in companies and in both at individuals and teams and company level, change is a big thing. So change is something that's often happening, and change is prevalent, I guess, again in the world. And there are different emotions that link into that. And one emotion in particular that I think you can tap into is anger. And anger is an incredibly powerful emotion for lots of different reasons. And what anger can do, you can harness it in a really constructive way. So there's a client of mine that I was working with that set out a new vision or a new purpose for them as a company. They said, right, this is where we want to be. This is the culture we want to have. And what that did is, for all the people that work in the company over here, is they said, okay, that's the goal then, that's what we want to have, that's what we want to get to. But there was a load of stuff in the way. And when there's an obstruction to a goal, that's what will trigger anger. And the purpose of anger is to remove or to overcome that obstruction. That's what it's there to do as an emotion. I was consulting with a company, and they asked for my help and support in delivering this purpose and delivering this new way forward for the organisation. So me, with my knowledge of emotions, was able to say, well, what this is going to do is it's going to light a fire under people. This is going to really ignite something in your people, in your workforce, that are going to want to get to this place over here. But there's a load of stuff in the middle that gets in the way. And if we don't remove that, then that could turn that anger from being constructive to being destructive. So one where it breaks down relationships, it breaks down communication, it becomes divisive. So we deliberately took stuff out of the way so that people could really get as fast as possible to delivering that purpose. And in particular, we looked at the career pathway and we said, right, what are all the blockers that we can take out of the way so that people can take control of their careers once again, and they can really have ownership of them, their future, and what they wanted to do, whether that be to continue doing what they've always done, whether that be to continue doing the work that they've always done and they've really enjoyed and they're really good at, or whether that be actually wanting to get something else or something different. Then we took as many of those blockers away so we could harness that fire that had been lit by anger and allow people to get towards that purpose quicker. If emotion has ever got the better of you and something's happened that you then regretted, or if you're not sure who you are, or you feel like you're not allowed, you're not comfortable being who you are, and the identity that you have to take doesn't work for you, or you just want to know how do people work and how do you mix and mingle and make use of all those relationships and all of those connections that you have in the workplace, then emotional work will give you both insight and time to process that insight, and then an opportunity to think about, well, what does that really mean for me? And emotional work will give you all of those things to help equip you so that you can be more constructive and more productive at work. So I think the emotions are prevalent everywhere. So as humans, we have emotions to keep us alive. That's what they're the two primary functions of emotion. One is to keep us alive, and the second one is to help us thrive as a species. And therefore, they've got to be present everywhere. And that's for me, that's the real confusing bit about work. It's almost like you're allowed to experience emotion at home, but you can't experience it at work because it's not okay to do that, or what I would call credible. It's not credible to experience emotion at work. So absolutely, it could work. The stuff that you learn and the insight that you have and the knowledge that you pick up as you by attending emotion at work can help you in any context, in any environment. The reason I've chosen to focus it on the workplace is because I think it's okay to experience emotion in your personal lives, but it's not okay to do it at work. And I think as individuals and as companies, we're missing out on so much stuff here, so much richness, so much energy, so much fire, to use the example from earlier on, so much opportunity where we could harness emotions to really make it work at work, but instead we don't. We just say you can't experience emotion at work because that's not allowed. It's got to be all about logic and stuff. So the issue I have with conferences in general is that the way that a conference kind of creates value is by having as many speakers as possible, by shoving speakers in your face and more of them, so you get more and more input, and that seems to be how conferences kind of describe value. So value is lots of stuff. My issue with that is that doesn't actually support any both common sense or research-based approaches to how people learn. If people are going to a conference and they want to learn something, they need to have that information, they need to have the input in whatever way that comes. So often at a conference that's from a speaker or an expert or whatever that is. But then if you just go from speaker 1 to speaker 2 with nothing in between, what do you do with that stuff? Because the nature of memory is that you'll forget. So what happened here, you'll forget by the time you get to the end of this one. So if you haven't had the time to think about it and then make sense of it, to link it back to you and your world and your practice or your discipline or your organisation or whatever it is, if you haven't had the chance to listen to this person, make sense of that, and then consider how you're going to apply that to your context, then where's the value? It's gone already. The value's disappeared. So yes, you might go away going, wow, I've heard from loads of people today and my head is full. The trouble is though, that will just fall out of your head and you'll lose it, and you won't have the opportunity to make sense of it, to do something with it, and actually to make real genuine benefit from your time and effort and energy. So the reason that this is how a conference should be is because we are deliberately building time in to do that. So at least a third of the day is going to be about reflection, sense making, discussion, whatever that may be. At least a third of the day you will hear from nobody else. So there are few key speakers that will give some brilliant insight into the world of emotional work, and then there's lots of space and time for you to make sense of that, whether you want to do that on your own as an individual, in pairs with a few people, in a big group discussion, or looking at over the water. Really doesn't matter to me, but it's so important that time is in there for you to make sense of stuff, because if it isn't, then the chances of you putting it into practice diminish, the chances of it making a difference in the big wide world decrease, and then I get really sad, and I don't want that to happen. I guess there's a personal bit to it, in that I made a promise to myself and to other people earlier on this year that I want to make work better for everybody. And a big way I think work can be a better place for people is by openly and deliberately and purposefully harnessing the power that emotion has. And that's what I want emotional work to do. I want it to light a fire in people. So if you come, I want emotional work to light a fire in you, so you go, you know what, I want to do something about this, I've got to do something about this, to continue to let emotions just be viewed in the way that they are in the workplace just can't continue, because to do so we're kind of denying what it is to be human. And so and for me that then helps me deliver my promise of making work better for everybody. So yeah, there's a real personal bit for me about why I want to do this event and why it matters.